Waheguru Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ki Fateh. My name is Gursant Singh, and today I'll be doing a short review of the new HBO Docu series, Breath of Fire. Now, for all of you who may not have seen it, it's about Guru Jagat, who's one of Yogi Bhajan's students. But it also has a lot in there about Kundalini Yoga and Yogi Bhajan and the abuses that he inflicted on his students. So I'll be talking a lot about my experiences because, as a lot of you know, I was around Yogi Bhajan for some 30 years. I was in close proximity to him. In fact, I was one of his bodyguards for a lot of that time in Los Angeles and in Espanola as well. So I witnessed some things, and regrettably, I didn't speak up at the time. I guess my only defense was that I was in my early 20s and I was gullible and I was susceptible to just being in this cult, and I didn't really wake up until, probably it was like around 2009, although I was starting to just search and start talking to people about the abuses Yogi Bhajan was doing to his students. And anyway, so in part 3, this episode 3 of the Breath of Fire, Mahan Kirn Kaur gives her testimony about being raped by Yogi Bhajan, and I really want to reach out with my heartfelt sympathies towards her and the other victims of Yogi Bhajan's sexual abuses. I think it's really courageous of Mahan Kirn Kaur for going public with her testimony about how Yogi Bhajan sexually abused her. And she was very young too, in her teens, I believe, when this first happened. So I have really a great respect and regard for these really very courageous individuals like Mahan Kirn Kaur. Now, I've spoken to several other women who are just finding it very difficult to come forward publicly. And it's more than just somebody trying to make money off of these testimonies. These are really sincere individuals that I've talked to, and then this account that Mahan Kirn Kaur gives in this HBO special in episode 3 is just very persuasive. She goes into great detail about all the circumstances, and it made complete sense to me. It was exactly the way she describes it, that Yogi Bhajan would falsely try to lure somebody into his bedroom by offering to adjust their back or their neck or something like this. I had a personal experience several times when Yogi Bhajan would invite me into his bedroom, and just this was exactly how he would do, and everybody else would go out. So I think with certainty that these people are, these women are telling the truth. I was on guard duty many times in Los Angeles, and I know in particular one time it was late at night, and it was probably about 1 a.m. in the morning, and Yogi Bhajan came out in his underwear where I was on guard duty there on 1620 Pruce Road. And Yogi Bhajan had several residences there in Los Angeles. And the so-called secretaries, the female secretaries, they were lodged in different residences of Yogi Bhajan's. So Yogi Bhajan came out. I remember this particularly. It was a night after Indira Gandhi had spoken in Los Angeles, and I was on guard duty that night. So he came out, and he was in his underwear and just had this shawl over. So he said, "Take me up to the estate." Well, that's where Pamela Dyson, or as she was known, Premka, was lodged at the time. And so I read later in Pamela's book how she talked about Yogi Bhajan would come up and rendezvous with her. Anyway, so I took him up in this small little car. It was kind of comical how he squeezed into the car. But anyway, that's how I remember it. Anyway, so I took him many places like this where the secretaries were lodged. And, you know, we all knew that he slept in the same room with somebody who was on duty, they would call it, one of the female secretaries. And, you know, he would always just say that he was protecting their aura. Yeah, right. Anyway, we should have known, and like I said, my only defense is that I was very young then, very gullible and naive. I can say that. So that's the first thing I wanted to do, was to give, like I said, my heartfelt sympathies and say that I'm very sorry that, you know, I didn't act back then and try to bring awareness of what was happening. Probably should have known, probably should have investigated why he was sleeping in the same room with these secretaries. I witnessed also him physically hitting people, kicking one young man. I talk about it in my book, Confessions of an American Sikh. And it was alarming. And like I said, regret now not speaking up. But I guess, you know, you have to understand that I was very young, and it was a big cult. A lot of people were older than me. And so I looked to them for guidance, and, you know, it just wasn't coming that way. And it would have been very difficult to speak up. I would have been completely ostracized. I'm ostracized as it is now. But anyway, I'm old enough now where I can stand on my own and, you know, speak with confidence about what the truth is. So that's the first thing I wanted to bring up. Now, also in episode 3, there was a clip, and I want to play it for you, which is very disturbing, as I would call myself a traditional Sikh that follows the Sikh Rahat Maryada, or the Sikh Code of Conduct. And so I've been talking about this for years, about how Yogi Bhajan twists Sikh scriptures, and Gurbani, as we call it, twists it to fit his own tantric and yoga agenda. But this was really just appalling how the students of Guru Jagat describe how they used this mantra that Yogi Bhajan made up. And Yogi Bhajan combined it with Gurbani and the Sikh scriptures and made his own really corrupted and distorted mantra, which was for his own ends. So let's just listen to this. This was, like I said, from the episode 3 there, and shows you how they were using this twisted version of Gurbani for their own ends.
So there was a mantra that's this Baba Siddhi Chand mantra, which is supposed to be, if you recite this mantra, it will cause harm to your enemies. The mantra was described to us as, well, it's not like, I'm going to say this to kill you, but I'm going to say it so that way all these bad things happen to you, and maybe you'll get cancer and die. Maybe you'll just get divorced. Maybe you'll have your business fail. They believed in this mantra and wanted us to use this as a tactic.
So I hope you could hear that. But this mantra is described by 3HO as one that it says here on their, this is their one of their official website, Yogi Bhajan, students of Yogi Bhajan they call themselves. So this was a mantra Yogi Bhajan incorporated one of the, what we call the Mool mantra, which is one of the basic Gurbani verses, if you will, and he's combined it with this chant to this Siri Chand or Baba Siri Chand, and it's really sacrilegious. It's just a complete corruption of Gurbani, and to use for this end of hurting people, or even I remember some people even saying when I was in 3HO that this mantra would, if you chanted it against somebody, it was like, you know, like kind of like a black magic against them to cause them pain or to even kill them. It's very, very manmud, as we call it, or sacrilegious, the way that these Guru Jagat and these students of Yogi Bhajan are using Gurbani and twisting it around with this. So they describe it, 3HO describes this mantra on their website as they say, Baba Siri Chand was a powerful, well-known yogi who lived in the time of the Sikh Gurus. He was the eldest son of Guru Nanak and became the founder of the ascetic Udasis. So this is a completely false statement. You know, except for the part that, yes, Siri Chand was the eldest son of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, but he was a rebel, and he didn't follow the directions of his father, Guru Nanak Dev Ji. So he was kind of an outcast in that regard, and he was always wandering around and trying to gather his followers together and follow his way of thinking, which was against his father's teachings. So he was really somebody who was like a rebel, I guess you would say, in that regard, and he wasn't following his father's teachings. So he wasn't a yogi, though. This is something Yogi Bhajan has falsely accredited to Siri Chand. Dr. Trilochan Singh, in his book Sikhism and Tantric Yoga, describes specifically that how the Udasis were not yogis in the sense, they'd never practiced this absurd Kundalini yoga of Yogi Bhajan. So Yogi Bhajan, though, found it convenient to find this historical figure, Siri Chand, who was the son of Guru Nanak, and propped him up, gave him a place in the in his teaching, so that it would give him kind of a mystique around. He was the son of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and he was, and then Yogi Bhajan attached this whole thing about him being a yogi, and so. I want to describe how in Sikhi, like I said, the Ad Such, Jugad Such, Abbe Such, Nanakosi be Such, that is a very sacred verse, if you will. It's a part of it's the beginning of Japji Sahib, Guru Nanak Dev Ji's foundation of Sikhi, if you will. And it translates roughly as the Creator is true in the beginning. That's Ad Such. Jugad Such is true throughout the ages. Habe Such is true at this moment. And then Nanak Hose Be Such. Nanak says this truth shall ever be. That's what it means. That's how it translates to English from the original Gurmukhi. So as you can see, it has nothing to do with trying to give harm to anybody. It's just the opposite, if you will, where it's trying to uplift people. But Yogi Bhajan has done this sacrilegious thing of twisting the Gurbani, the Sikh traditional verses of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, and used it for his own tantric and corrupt purposes. And then this Guru Jagat, she just latched onto these things like this, and this, along with this mentor of hers, this Harijiwan, the Toner Bandit. We'll talk about him in a few minutes. I had direct experiences with him in business. I'll talk about that. But anyway, they latched onto this Yogi Bhajan myth, if you will, or just falsehood. How, you know, they chant to this Siri Chand and ask him for powers to get rid of their enemies, basically. I mean, that's the way it was described to us as well. And I want to point out, in Gurbani, it actually says about Sri Chand and the sons of Guru Nanak Dev Ji, it says, his sons did not obey his word, meaning Guru Nanak Dev Ji's sons did not obey him. They turned their backs on him as the Guru. These evil-hearted ones, that's talking about Sri Chand and his brothers, became rebellious. They carry loads of sins on their backs. So rather than being a revered character in the history of Sikhs, Sri Chand is sort of an outcast in a way. And so I wanted to show you just briefly how, just over here, I can see the gold dome from my window right here where I'm doing this video of the Yogi Bhajan Dera. And it just snowed today, so it's very beautiful. But anyway, but I can see the dome here. And this is where they have this, if you will, idol of Sri Chand. I don't know if you can see it there. It's a gold murti or idol of the Sri Chand that's just right here, just a couple hundred yards away. Anyway, so they literally worship this Sri Chand. And here's another one. They've got a couple of these statues. This is a bronze statue they have over there of Sri Chand. And that has like a pagoda over the top of it. And, you know, I have pictures of some of these Yogi Bhajan followers bowing to this Sri Chand. It's just completely sacrilegious and anti-Sikh. I can't tell you how bad it is as far as, you know, violating the Sikh code of conduct. So it's really appalling, again, how Yogi Bhajan twisted Gurbani. And this is a perfect example how he twisted Gurbani and used it for his own tantric ends and for his own debauched purposes, if you will. So let's talk a little bit about Harijiwan, the, quote, Toner Bandit. So I had many, many years experience with him. I have to say, regrettably, that we did illegal things that were against the Sikh code of conduct, cheated people, and just to make money. Yogi Bhajan had this mandate to us to that we should make money, and so we were engaged in all kinds of fraudulent activities. And I want to point out, they talked about this Harijiwan, who is the mentor to Guru Jagat, and Harijiwan had a lot of experience in this manipulating people and persuading people. He studied with this Richard Bandler and this NLP, Neuro-Linguistic Programming, which is a highly effective way to persuade people and manipulate people. And so he was doing it on the telephone with people trying to get them to buy these toner and other kind of office supplies at hugely inflated prices. And then he got the idea of just sending out the invoice and no product. And that's what he was eventually busted for and indicted for on these criminal activities. So I guess I was just really blessed or whatever not to have gotten arrested. I really feel a lot of regret about getting involved with him. So in 2009, after I got back from India, and that's a whole nother story. I think why Guru Sahib really protected me and helped me realize what a fraud Yogi Bhajan was, and what a fraud this Harijiwan was and is. He was involved with trying to this was after he got out of prison. He served 18 months in federal prison for this fraudulent activity and mail fraud, and he was cashing checks and trying to cheat the government out of their taxes and things like that too. So it wasn't just the toner supply fraud. Anyway, so when he got out of prison, he started to try to do this day trading. It wasn't working out. So he told me that he was going to start learning the gong so he could try to appeal to people, and he put out several videos with this gong. So he really found a niche where these gullible yoga students thought that he was the master of the gong. He was really just banging on it, and as he had never taught a yoga class before, I would say the mid 2000s, and he claimed that he was with Yogi Bhajan for many years, but he was always involved in this selling this toner supplies and involved in this fraudulent activity like that. He was never teaching yoga. So, but then he decided that kind of in the mid 2000s, I would say between maybe 2006 or 7, something like that. He decided that he was going to be a master of Kundalini yoga and say that he was one of the students of Yogi Bhajan who was individually anointed, if you will, to be a successor to Yogi Bhajan. Anyway, so he got a following there in Los Angeles, and a lot of people really bought into his stuff. But really remember, this guy was a master manipulator. He studied with this Richard Bandler, and he knew how to hypnotize people. He knows how to, he still does it. Anyway, so he's just a master manipulator. And I think he really manipulated this guy, Guru Jagat, and just wrapped around his little finger to do his bidding. He knew that he wasn't as charismatic as this Guru Jagat. And they point this out in the review, in the Breath of Fire episode here, especially in episode 3. And the other thing everybody should realize is Kundalini Yoga, especially this Breath of Fire that the series is named after, is very effective in getting you to this space where you're very susceptible to indoctrination and to suggestions. And this Harijiwan is a master at it. Yogi Bhajan was a master at it too. He put us all in after doing a very vigorous Kundalini yoga exercise, he put us into a layout state, he called it. And then he'd play the gong. And this is exactly what Harijiwan is doing now, is he plays the gong and he gets you like in a hypnotic state where you're very open to suggestions and can be manipulated, your psyche and everything. They describe in this episode how people would walk out of these classes of Harijiwans and be completely spaced out, completely in the ethers, and just think, oh, everything's great, And in the meantime, Harijiwan's just manipulating, how he gets their money and gets their support, and has him doing seva for him and all this kind of stuff, and Guru Jagat the same way. Anyway, Harijiwan is just a despicable person. He's not only a criminal, who spent time in prison. My understanding is from this episode that he divorced his. He's had 2 divorces, and he divorced the first wife who helped him get out of prison after he got out of prison. This Aaron, and then he married a couple, his current wife, she was married before, and then they got divorced. And I don't know if he had anything to do with the divorce, but then he married her, and she's about 30 years younger than him. Talk about complete manipulation. Like I said, just keep in mind, this guy is a master manipulator. Now, I should also talk about, there's another Harijivan, and it's easy to get them confused. They both have even the same birth name, Steve. And this other Harijivan, he was involved in a criminal, in a case that the FTC brought against his company for selling gemstones fraudulently to elder people at really exorbitant prices, and promising them that he'd buy them back and that maybe they belonged to the Queen of England or something. Anyway, so this was this Harijivan, the other Harijivan, and just to be clear, so we don't get confused, we'll call the Toner Bandit Harijivan Jr. Because he's younger, and then we'll call the other one Harijivan Senior, and because he's the elder one, and he's the one who lives here in Espanola. I've had a lot of dealings with him. He is quite a case. He's a complete denier, and he was the right-hand man of Yogi Bhajan. And we would always go to lunch. He would take him to lunch and everything. Now, this is a very important piece of information that I just learned, that his company, who also sold toner supplies and for copy machines and office supplies and things like that, they were sending out product, but I just learned this, that from a very reliable source, that they'd also double invoice the customers. So a lot of the accounting in these big companies is not very good. And back in the 80s, they didn't have computers, so it was really hard to check things. So I think probably about 5% of these people who are double invoiced, they would pay the second invoice. And Harijivan knew this with his partners and everybody. And so Harijivan was pocketing this extra money that he would collect the mail, and he would pocket this extra money. And when he was confronted by his partners about this, one of them, this Baba Singh, he said, well, I'm just paying for these lunches of, Yogi Bhajan, the boss, he would call him. So with this extra money that they would get from these double invoicing, because it was just like free money, basically, because the customers weren't getting the product for that. Anyway, so this Baba Singh, they had a fight, a physical, fist fight out in front of the GRD. I remember when that happened. And this Baba Singh and Harijivan, that was right there on Robertson Boulevard where they had their offices and everything. So, at the time I didn't really know what it was about. But Baba Singh, he ended up leaving 3HO and left the company everything, because I think his daughter actually was one of the ones who came out and said that Yogi Bhajan had abused her. That was in the Vice video that I was involved in. Anyway, so that's about Harijivan, and you can see on my website I've got more about Harijivan, some writing. My website's gurmukh yoga.com, and I've got a lot of good information talks more about Harijivan and some of the other activities of the Harijivan Senior as well. He was calling himself the chief of protocol for Yogi Bhajan. But yeah, they were involved in all these kind of really shady, if not fraudulent, activities. So now the other thing I want to go over that was important in episode 3 was how this Harijivan Jr., Toner Bandit guy, they denied all of these accounts of abuse, the hundreds of accounts of abuse by Yogi Bhajan that came out after the Olive Branch report came out, which was an independent study that was actually paid for by the leadership in the Yogi Bhajan organizations. They wanted to try to get to the bottom of all of it. That's all changed now because hardcore Yogi Bhajan followers have taken over. But at the time, this was back in 2020 when Pamela Dyson's book came out. That was Premka, one of the chief secretaries for Yogi Bhajan. Then at the time, this was all coming out, and so what happened was Harijiwan denied all this. That's what I was speaking about. Sorry about that. Okay, so Harijiwan Jr. was denying all of these accusations and accounts of abuse, and he put out a video, which was completely supportive of Yogi Bhajan, and he said all these people were lying, all these hundreds of women were lying. And like I said, I've talked to many of them. They have no reason to lie. And they're very sincere in their accounts. So I want to bring up how Harijiwan has said in his message to other people that, well, Yogi Bhajan is dead now. He can't talk for himself. And so, you know, it really, and I've heard this argument before, that you shouldn't criticize somebody when they're dead and they can't speak for themselves. But my response is that back in 1986, there was a lawsuit, and they talked about it in the series, in episode 3. This Kate Felt brought a lawsuit against Yogi Bhajan. And she claimed that Yogi Bhajan had abused her and raped her, and there was, you know, a lot of really horrendous debauched things that he did to her. Anyway, so there was this lawsuit, and I talked to the attorney who was representing Kate. That was back when I got back from India. I talked to him on the phone, and his name is Peter Georgiades. I have to see if I can pronounce it. Georgiades. I'm sorry for botching that. Anyway, but he was the attorney for Kate, and Pamela also had a lawsuit going there too. I'm going to play you a video of him talking about how he could never get Yogi Bhajan to give his deposition. The judge had ordered him 5 times, had ordered Yogi Bhajan to give his deposition 5 different times. And Yogi Bhajan would always get the excuse from his doctor, this Dr. Saram, who just recently passed away. He passed away from COVID complications. And I don't know if he was anti-vax or what. But anyway, this Dr. Saram would give him excuses so Yogi Bhajan wouldn't have to go give his deposition. Well, I know for a fact that Yogi Bhajan could give his deposition because exactly at that same time, we were going up to La Scala and having really luxurious lunches and expensive lunches. And Yogi Bhajan, to me, looked completely healthy, and I'm sure he was. But as Peter will describe in this video, it's just impossible for the cult leader to give his deposition because it makes him look weak. You know, if he tells the truth, and if he tries to lie, it's very difficult to do in a deposition, and it makes him look weak because he has to surrender to this other authority of a court, you know, an officer of the court, which is the lawyer who was representing Kate. It makes him look weak, so he just always gets his excuses. And like I said, he was completely able and healthy to be able to give his deposition too. So let's watch this video. Or not watch it, but just listen to it by Peter.
Management, and when I use the term management, I mean the Chief Mahav and his close circle of lieutenants who actually run the group. Management cannot be perceived as being less than invincible or less than invulnerable. If you bring the big yogi in and sit him down in the deposition room and force him to answer your questions and cross-examine him when he lies to you, and you catch him in lies, the mere fact that he has to respond to your notice and the mere fact that he has to be there is evidence that he does not make the world turn. And that's a political problem. I never was able to get Yogi Bhajan into a deposition in a year and a half of litigation. Every time he came up for deposition, he would have one of his followers, who was a medical doctor, write him a medical excuse. And the judge let him get away with that 5 times. So that he couldn't come and testify, because that would be answering to another authority. Not my authority, it would be the authority of the court, but in the group it would be perceived as my authority. And now there's some question about who the chief Mahat really is. So they fight you for that reason. The ones who leave, under no circumstances can be seen to prevail. One of the things I've learned about at least those groups that I worked with is, when you leave, you're defamed. He's going to die now. He's left the protection of the spiritual protection of the guru, so he's going to be reincarnated as a cockroach, or the negative energy is going to get you now that you're out in the world, or the devil will occupy you. I'm just going down the list. You will no longer realize your full potential, and you'll be unhappy the rest of your life. Those are 4 of the ones I can think of. Well, that kind of all goes to hell if the person becomes a big money judgment against the group and walks away with cash.
All right, so this shows Yogi Bhajan had an opportunity to defend himself back then when these lawsuits were there. I mean, he would not give his deposition, you know, so I think he had plenty of opportunity to be able to do that. So I think Peter's testimony there is very useful, and I think it shows Yogi Bhajan was just trying to hide the truth about all these abuses and everything. And this argument that he didn't have an opportunity to defend himself is just a completely shattered argument. Now, I wanted to point out how in the previous episodes of this HBO series, they almost kind of are, I wouldn't say glorifying the yoga of Yogi Bhajan, but in one review I found, I thought it was very good. They talked about how, or the review person said how they watched the first episode thinking that this was going to be a 4-part tribute to Guru Jagat. And I kind of thought the same thing. It was kind of strange how they almost promoted this idea of, you know, it was cool to get high on this yoga and everything. But I want to emphasize that this is just a short-term high, if you will, from doing this Kundalini yoga. These people who were getting off drugs, they wanted something what they called natural high or whatever, things like that. And my experience and many others, this Kundalini yoga of Yogi Bhajan is only aimed at getting you to in a state where you're very susceptible to indoctrination into the cult. And it leads to a lot of very bad experiences that they're talking about in this docu-series. So let there be no doubt about it. This Kundalini yoga and tantric yoga of Yogi Bhajan's is not a good thing. It's damaging. I think it leads to a state where you are you're surrendering yourself, if you will, and just surrendering to the cult master, either somebody like this Harijiwan, who's very manipulative, or Yogi Bhajan, who is a master of manipulation as well. I think he really put people into a hypnotic state. I look back at it now and I just think, God, how could I have followed this nut, you know, or this kind of really debauched person? But he was very persuasive, especially to people that were young and that were susceptible to looking for a new kind of way of, you know, a less material-oriented life and things like that, wanted spirituality. And it's just really shameful. And I'm so sorry this happened to a lot of people. It's really taken me years and years to work through this. And I remained a Sikh, as you can tell. I'm still wearing the 5Ks of Sikhi, and I follow the Sikh Ret Mariata. But many of these people who were part of the Yogi Bhajan group and consider themselves Sikhs have actually left Sikhi as well, which is very disturbing. And so I hope that, I pray that I can help some of these people who are still kind of on the fence, and maybe they're still interested in Sikhi, that maybe I can help them see that Sikhi is much, in its true form, is completely different than the way Yogi Bhajan taught it, and doesn't involve all these crazy mantras that Yogi Bhajan inserted in there and twisted Sikhi around and twisted Gurbani. Sikhi is a very beautiful religion and way of life. I have just found so much happiness in being, following the Sikh discipline and the Sikh way of life, getting up early in the morning and reciting God's name. It is really such a blessing. I just feel so blessed to be able to have remained a Sikh. And so if there's anybody out there who is still thinking that they'd like to leave this 3HO, or they're not sure about their Sikhi, feel free to call me. My number is 505-903-2675. I'd be happy to discuss anything with you about what I found, my experiences, and all my 40-some years or so, 45 years, I guess. We're all getting older. So I'll have more to speak about with this docu-series. Just one more thing I'll talk about. The depiction of Sikh in the docu-series, I don't believe is accurate, and in fact it was kind of insulting. The person who is labeled as a Sikh activist and describing Sikhi is not wearing she's wearing one of the 5 Ks, just the steel bracelet. But she's cut her hair, which is completely a violation of Sikh Ret Maryada. And I don't know exactly what the directors were thinking here. It almost seems like they were maybe a little bit anti-religion or anti-traditional Sikh. I'd like to know more, and maybe somebody can speak with the directors, this Haley Pappas and Smiley, I forget her last name anyway, but they had actually called me a couple of years ago, and I talked to them at length about giving my interview, and it seemed like they were all set to come and interview me here in Espanola and talk about everything. But in fact, we were trying to set dates, and I talked to them many times on the phone. But all of a sudden, they just cut off. And I'm thinking that possibly they didn't want to have a really traditional Sikh that was represented in the film. And because traditional Sikhs really revere weapons, and I am not ashamed to say that I am very much a proponent of wearing firearms and defending those who can't defend themselves. And I think maybe this was one reason they were scared away from interviewing me. I think they may have talked to some of the other people that have left 3HO, and they badmouthed me or talked about how Sikhs maybe shouldn't wear firearms or shouldn't be revering weapons. So that's just my speculation, and I would like to find out more why they decided. I know they came here and filmed because they filmed somebody that I know, and I didn't find out till I saw them in the film, but I recognized the inside of their house. So I know they were here in Espanola, maybe just a few hundred yards away. So there's some reason, some agenda, I think, maybe that was going on there, why they chose not to interview me and talk about my experiences, because I had a lot of extensive experiences with not only Yogi Bhajan, but the mentor of Guru Jagat, this Harijiwan. I had a lot of close experiences with him, and I could have given a lot of insights about how he was very manipulative and how he studied this NLP with this Richard Bandler and studied how to manipulate people. I think that's very important. And Yogi Bhajan studied these NLP techniques too, but he also picked them up being a customs officer in India. And he knew how to manipulate people and how to extract money from them. But he was also after sex and power as well. And it appears this Harijivan is also after that. So hopefully these people will be stopped in their tracks. Companies like Yogi Tea that make money for these hardcore Yogi Bhajan followers will be boycotted, if you will, because, really, why should we be buying a product that supports an organization that defends a rapist and defends these practices of like Kundalini and Tantric Yoga that are obviously designed to lure people into their cult and to create an environment and a position or character where people are indoctrinated into a cult. It creates this physical and mental passivity, if you will, or where you're more susceptible to be indoctrinated into the cult. And I've also heard that Yogi Bhajan's Kundalini Yoga is dangerous in a physical sense too, of just taxing the body too much and straining different muscles and all that kind of thing too. But I think the main danger is this design to get people into his cult and to create this artificial synthetic high, if you will. But there's also this other, twisting of Sikhi and this really debauched use of Gurbani, as we saw with this mantra for causing pain and causing hardships on people that may criticize you. It's really abhorrent to Sikhi, because Sikhs only want to uplift people and they want to talk about the truth. So thank you for your time. And like I said, contact me anytime. You can message me. I'm happy to talk about all my experiences, and hopefully I can help people understand the truth and to get down to the truth and to get on the path that leads them to the truth. Thank you. Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.